welcome to the podcast 1111 Starseeds Unite. Starseeds, Lightworkers, Groundworkers, Mystics, Enchantants, what's Goonie? Yeah, we are here. We are live. So I don't know if you guys know, but there was a full moon in Leo over the weekend. And just feeling all the vibes of that. Burning all that up. Feeling it all. And yeah, the vibes are high. I hope you are as well. And I hope everyone's having a great day. Just breathe it in. Let it out. All right. So this daily broadcast has not been as daily as I'd like. But, when in Rome or when at home. And so, yeah. If you guys have any topic requests, please direct them to my inbox at Agent K21 Podcast on Instagram, at Agent K21 on Twitter or Instagram. All right, so this is Black History Month. I'm not going to give a fun fact today, but I am going to give you all a challenge. I'm going to challenge you all. For those who use this word, I'm going to ask that you, for the month of February, do not use the N-word. Do not use the N-word. That is my challenge to you for the entire month of Black History Month. Do not use it. Don't think it. Don't speak it. Don't say it. See, oftentimes we don't realize that the words we speak give a vibration and they come right back to our ears. The words we say out of our mouth, we're the ones listening. And if we're calling ourselves derogatory things, what are we feeding our spirit? What are we telling ourselves? How much love do we really have for ourselves? So I'm going to challenge you, if you do use this word, to refrain from using the N-word for the month of February. All right, guys. So getting right into it, this is part 2 of being triggered. So first part was triggering others. This part I want to talk about is when you're triggered. What to do when you are triggered. And so I'm going to give a couple of references closer to the end of things that I have found helpful and my own personal experience with this. So what is a trigger? What is a trigger? A trigger typically is when something or someone, a situation has occurred that is a reflection of a wound, typically in childhood, that is not healed. And so our reactions can be dramatic, overreacting, confusing, different things can happen. And all of these feelings are valid. So let's go ahead and clear that up. However you respond is perfectly okay. The thing about it is we're not here to shame. No one wants to shame themselves or others. So when we do this healing work, we want to integrate it. We want to accept the things we want to suppress and the things we want to reject about ourselves. We want to embrace those painful feelings. If anger wasn't a feeling that you could express in your household, you might just shift it to being happy. You might go into a state of denial. You might suppress it. You might deny it. You might do a number of different things to cover up the anger, to cover up the sadness. We don't want to cover it up. We want to flush it out. We want to have all that congestion come up to the surface and really integrate it because it's there for a reason. All of your emotions are purely there for a reason. And so oftentimes when we're triggered, we might in hindsight judge ourselves or be critical of others for their reaction or for our reaction. But you have to realize everyone's walking their own path with their own baggage. And so when triggered or when being triggered, it's reasonable to be kind to yourself, especially in those moments, to say, hey, you're not overreacting. You're not being a drama queen. You didn't cause this to yourself, etc., etc. And really be your own best friend, because that is what's going to help you move forward. And so in those moments of being triggered, so that's what a trigger is. It's an unhealed wound that has been so suppressed that is subconscious. So the reaction doesn't seem to correlate. And you have to really dive deep to figure out, how does this even match to this? Oh, okay, I see that. I see this now. And So that's what a trigger is. What a trigger is not. A trigger is not someone who provokes you intentionally, who violates your boundaries, who criticizes you, who judges you, who ridicules you, who shames you. Those are not triggers. Those are feelings that can happen when being triggered. But being triggered and walking with someone who is a trigger, there's a difference between triggering people because of your awakening, because of your light, because of your beauty, because of all that you are, versus intentionally triggering someone. So if someone says, a little funny story, I had my sibling, I sent this post and it said, avoiding your triggers is not helping your healing. And the way it was interpreted on this person's end was that, oh yes, I provoke you, so you should be running towards me and being my friend because I am so disrespectful. And it was like, whoa, that's not the interpretation I was trying to get you to have, but that's of course where it went. And it was just like, to each his own, and you have to realize you can't make anyone see their own triggers. You can't make anyone do their own healing. That is a personal choice that we all have to choose for ourselves. So you're going to be triggered naturally, even by kind-hearted people. So it's not something about someone else. It's always about your inner self. It has nothing to do with anyone else outside of you. So, we can have this mindset of this spiritual conditioning. So we surround ourselves with assholes for our expansion. That's not the case. You don't have to do that. You should be able to be around people who love and appreciate you and accept you completely, and understand even around those people, you're still going to be triggered, because that's how this stuff comes to the surface, to realize, oh shit, I didn't deal with that, or oh man, I completely forgot about that, or wow, I didn't even see the similarities and the connection. Now I get it. And so, important to be present with yourself and to be kind to yourself in the process of recognizing your triggers, because it's inevitable we're going to be triggered. But what's the important thing is to observe the trigger, to not just react, because the reaction could be, I'm going to scream, cuss, yell, throw stuff, say stuff I don't mean, self-sabotage myself. Those could be the natural reactions that you do. But if you stop and say, wait a minute, let me step back, let me look at this, let me get some perspective on this and see, why am I acting like this? When have I felt this way before? What is actually happening right now? And you kind of just question your feelings a little bit in that space. And then you just kind of sit with it and be completely unconditionally present with it. And so there's a great process. One of my sources that I find a lot of information from, who's helped me on my journey, is Teal Swan. And she has a book called The Completion Process. The Completion Process, written by Teal Swan, or Teal Scott, she explains how to incorporate these triggers and how to walk through the process of this moment, step by step, of being triggered. And so, for those who are interested in diving a little bit deeper on that, I would recommend that as something to pick up. But just my quick story here of how to deal with the trigger is it's a prime opportunity when you feel yourself feeling angry, upset, frustrated, hurt, betrayed, anything like that. That's a prime opportunity to say, am I being triggered? Is this an unhealed wound coming to light? And oftentimes what you find is it is. And so I'll give a couple examples. I was triggered the other day. I was cooking dinner with a friend, and the friend says, what are you doing over there with that food? What are you doing? And immediately I got self-conscious and felt insecure. And it reminded me of growing up, and when I would cook, a parent would say something along the lines of like, oh, just let me cook, let me do this for you, or what are you doing? Or, anything like that. And that what was being triggered in that moment. And so the way to integrate that moment, that experience, was to take a deep breath, realize that person is just a reflection of a dialogue within ourselves. And so I had to recognize, what voice am I hearing right now? What is being shaken up in me? What is making me feel insecure? What is making me doubt myself? What is making me feel withdrawn? What is making me feel these things? And I sat and I thought, and I realized, okay, that experience comes to mind. Now, a couple things you can do. I didn't particularly do this one for this time, but I have done this in the past, is re-narrate the situation, going back to the memory and telling a different outcome, telling a different story of what you want to have happen. Not what actually happened, or not what you don't want to have happen, but what you would like to see have happen. If this was the ideal parent, if this was you as the parent, what would you have wanted to happen? How would you have wanted that child to feel? The other thing is giving yourself reassurance. Giving yourself the reassurance that you are in the process. You are healing. You are doing these things, And so anything like that can help reintegrate these scenarios. The other trigger for me, I was triggered because there was a moment where I felt, and this was a trigger of something I'm actually working on, which is two things I can do is I can have an entitled attitude, and I can also have abdication of responsibility. And what I mean by that is placing the burden of my happiness or my responsibility or my enjoyment onto someone else. And I recognized, this is what's happening, but it also was triggering feelings of abandonment, feelings of not being supported. And in this situation, what happened is, someone had to be somewhere at a certain time, and we're all trying to get ready to leave. And then it's like, I got to go now. I don't know what you're going to do. Like, what's up? And it was that feeling of like, thanks for having my back. It was that feeling of like, gee, thanks. You could have told me, you're leaving at such and such time, and I would have been out the door before you. And I recognized that was triggering, again, a childhood memory, a childhood feeling of feeling very left out and like isolated, not belonging, that kind of stuff. And had to reparent that child and say, hey, this is your responsibility. You are aware of the time, and you should have been more mindful of this. You can't blame anyone else for your negligence. You can't blame anyone else for your mistakes or pitfalls. You got to own up to it. And it was just a beautiful moment. And after that, those feelings subsided. It was like, okay, yeah, that's true. That is absolutely true. So when you're being triggered, it doesn't always have to be necessarily a negative emotion. Sometimes it could be a memory or a feeling, a sensation, anything that is making you kind of feel a little unpleasant or making you feel less than, in a way. And I feel like most of us have the needs to be seen, heard, and felt, and most of those needs were not met. So usually it's a need that's not being met that we have to either fill for ourselves or find people who can fill those needs for us. Willingly, of course, not grudgingly, but willingly fill those needs for us. And that's why connection is important. And those are a few examples of different scenarios of being triggered. One dealing with feeling angry and disappointed or however, and another actually being more so taking responsibility. And so we really want to be kind to ourselves, though, through the process. That is the key, is to be kind, because you can beat yourself up all day about it, but that's not going to help you get anywhere. So again, when it comes to these triggers, you don't want to dwell on it and spiral into a ball of confusion and depression. I mean, sometimes some days are going to be like that, of course, so give yourself the grace to have those days. But know that you can always get yourself out of any hole that you get yourself in. You can always get out. And so, but it's important to also acknowledge the pain, to acknowledge, have a little bit of recognition for it in order to filter it out in order to release it from your body and your bodies. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in the near future. But yes, thank you guys so much for listening. Thank you guys for still being with me on this journey of podcasting and authenticity. And we're going to keep right on moving. So I hope you all have a great rest of your day, morning, evening, night, or midnight. And until next time.